Mr. Masonganyi, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Anything that the minister told you today that he didn't tell us yesterday?
Thanks, Vuyo and the viewers. As you have made the introduction in regard to what the minister said yesterday, there wasn't much new that he told us today, because it's a procedure that after tabling the MTBBS, he has to meet a Standing Committee on Finance and Appropriations to go deeper and brief us as to what is the MTBBS is all about, and then what is it that they are going to do to address issues. Because key here, which is draining the budget, is the wage bill, as you have said, SOE bailout, as well as the debt service. Those are the three key issues which need to be addressed. And maybe fourthly is the undercollection of revenue.
Let's start with the last one, the undercollection of revenue. Now, SARS, we know, is going to get about R1 billion or so to help it collect revenue better. And from what the commissioner told us yesterday, there were some companies that were getting better, you know, at, for lack of a better word, cornering the SARS, and they wanted to strengthen the revenue services capacity to even detect the fraud and corruption that may be going on in other corners. Now, you are going to have to play an oversight role to make sure that that money does indeed go where it is supposed to go, and the work that's supposed to be undertaken does indeed happen.
Yes, our responsibility as a parliamentary committee is to play oversight, to make sure that the executive is held accountable on its annual performance plan, policies and legislation. In regard to the collection of revenue, there is a challenge, more especially when it comes to corporate tax. Companies do what in most cases we call a self-assessment and declare what they present to you, that this is what we have generated in terms of our gross income. What we are saying is that SARS, as a tax authority, should introduce a system of track and trace, because there is a lot of money that companies are not declaring. There's a problem of under declaring of tax by companies, and something has to be done. We also have a problem of illicit financial flow. There's a lot of money, billions of rands, that are leaving South Africa to other countries. There's a problem of tax havens. These are some of the key issues that National Treasury and the SARS have to tighten. And out of that, we'll be able to generate a lot of revenue. Because now, I think the biggest item in regard to generation of revenue, the biggest contributor is personal income tax. Compared to what companies are paying, corporate tax is quite very low. And we have to make sure that the debt servicing has to be controlled, because we can't have a situation where in the country debt service will exceed the money that we'll have to spend on our priorities, which is education, health, and social matters. Something has to be done in that regard.
Well, of course, I mean, we know that to track and trace, as you say, those who under-declare and to catch those who are involved in illicit outflows, you need to SARS to have a very strong capacity. And once upon a time, it was a model state agency. But the state capture project, of course, nearly destroyed that capacity. And that's something you need to focus your attention on as well as the committee, isn't it?
Yes. What we have emphasized is that law enforcement agencies should do their work. We met with the FIC, we met with the South African Reserve Bank, we met with the law enforcement agencies, police, hawks, and so on, to make sure that we curb on the illicit financial flow, we curb on a problem of money laundering, because there's a lot of money in circulation which cannot be accounted for. And that is the responsibility of law enforcement, which also are accountable to Parliament. But as I've said, the issue of SOC bailout, because we have got the problem of governance. The problem is not money, but the problem is poor governance of those SOEs. For how long are we going to bail them out? Because we have got necessities, which is education, health, and other priorities that have been set out by the President in SONA and the National Development Plan. Because from the look of things, it might be even difficult to meet the targets which are in the National Development Plan by 2030. If the way things are going now, the trends show that we are not going to meet those targets. And that will be a serious setback, because that will be a barometer for the country's development index. So we can't have a budget like, if personally, the bigger chunk of what you earn as an individual, you spend it on servicing the bond, the car loan, and a whole range of other loans. You will put your family into trouble. So issue of debt service, something has to be done. Issue of governance of SOEs, we have to do something about that. Of course, the wage bill is a matter that can be taken up with the trade unions.
Now, I've heard you mention the issue of governance, because as everyone knows, Parliament's committees have powers to summon people or institutions to come and give evidence. Not only that, but also produce documents and other forms of evidence to accompany the words that they often put before you. And often, parliamentary committees have actually been the ones to drop the ball, meekly submitting to members of the executive or top bureaucrats, and thereby not doing your oversight work. What's going to change this time around?
In today's meeting, we have agreed with the Minister that we'll take stock, audit all the decisions that Parliament has taken before in regard to the portfolio of finance. And when we meet again, he will have to explain to us on each and every decision of Parliament how he will have implemented that decision. Because Parliament is a legislative arm of government which has got powers, and there is no contempt of Parliament. Otherwise, there will be serious consequences. We are very much on the job of oversight. We called PIC, Public Investment Corporation. There's lots of money that has been written off, and we can't understand. We still want explanation in that regard. We are busy with the matter of Steinhoff. 20 billion rand or so, which belong to the workers, has just disappeared overnight. And we still want explanation. There has to be consequences in that regard. So we have never let off the hook any SOCE that account to the Standing Committee on Finance. We also have other committees, SCOPA and many other committees that are busy with other entities that have to explain themselves. Because what we can't understand, if you say SOEs are not viable, but you say we want an equity partner or somebody to come and buy this SOE. It means it's a problem of governance. It's not a problem of the viability of that SOE. And why do you have to sell if you can turn it around and make sure that it becomes viable? But it's a debate for another day. But we have to be convinced. If you think a private partner will add value, fine. But it should not end up in a situation where it brings burden to the services that SOE provide to the people, and in return they pay lots of rates. Say, for instance, in the case of Eskom, there's going to be unbundling of Eskom, but we believe that in itself is not going to lead to the increase of electricity tariff, which will be very bad for the poor people in this country, because unemployment is very high. We have to address the issue of unemployment, which has reached almost 29%. And within that, youth unemployment is almost 58%. So there are many young people who are out there in the street. All these wastages, irregular expenditure, unlawful expenditure, have to be addressed to make sure that we attend to the issue of youth unemployment, education, and health.
Perhaps what could also help, I mean, those of us who watch parliamentary proceedings and pay careful attention to might say, is perhaps enhancing the capacity of committee members, you know, so that they are able to ask the right questions and to track events diligently. Is that something that you have sort of spoken about as chairpersons or as committees generally, the enhancement of the capacity of members so that they follow the events and are able to ask the right questions?
Yes, right at the beginning of the year, the Office of the Speaker conducts a workshop, induction, and there are experts who come and conduct workshops for members of Parliament. Above that, the Office of the Speaker allocates parliamentary staff who are highly qualified in regard to the portfolio where they are allocated. Say, for instance, the Standing Committee on Finance, the staff that provide service to that Standing Committee, they are highly qualified from universities, and they are highly experienced. So we have got the requisite support service from the Office of the Speaker, and members from time to time are workshopped so that they have got a better understanding of what an oversight role is all about. And as I've said before, we are going to audit all the decisions that have been taken by the Standing Committee on Finance before and sit down with the minister to say, these are the decisions that have been taken. What are you doing? And he has to account to Parliament. Accounting to Parliament is not an option. It's mandatory as an arm of government. So the department and the agencies that fall under that department will have to come back and we address the decisions that we have taken before. Otherwise, there will be consequences.
Well, perhaps then, as you say, I mean, the support and experience is indeed there, but maybe sometimes it's actually the courage to stand up or raise your hand and ask someone who may be your senior politically the questions that you need to ask them.
When you are here, you account to Parliament. Your executive position cannot intimidate members of Parliament. The same applies. If I'm a minister, I go to court, I go there as a citizen of this country. You can't intimidate a judge because of the position that you hold in the country. So the Constitution is supreme. It has given or allocated or provided powers to Parliament to make sure that the executive accounts. So when they are here they must abide by the authority of Parliament. It does not matter what position somebody holds in a particular political organization or in a government. The responsibility of Parliament is to hold you accountable, including the President. He was here today to come and answer questions that members are asking. And they do that without favor nor prejudice. You have seen him responding to questions. The Deputy President every month comes here to come and respond to questions. And ministers from time to time, every quarter, they have to appear before committees and explain that these are the targets that you have set for yourself in the annual performance plan. Why have you not achieved this target? Explain to us. Then we take that report to the chamber in the form of a budgetary review report. And once Parliament adopts that report, it becomes the responsibility of the executive to make sure that they abide by the decisions of Parliament.
Mr. Joe Maswanganyi, thank you so much for your time this evening. He is the chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance.